And we are live. Welcome to CAD Live. I'm Troy Francis, and I'm joined by a very special guest, Mr. James Tusk, who is no stranger to this channel. We did a fantastic interview in rainy London a few months ago, and I've been on his channel as well. But particularly excitingly, James has escaped the tyrannical lockdown UK. Sorry, I mean the caring and sharing UK, where we are trying to handle a crisis at the moment. And he's gone to sunny Mexico, which sounds like a very good idea. Probably a lot of fun. So listen, mate, it's awesome to catch up with you again. I mean, how are you? Where are you at the moment? What's happening?
Yeah, so very hungover currently, operating on about 3 hours sleep. Played wingman of the century yesterday with my friend. It wasn't the ideal situation. I'd love to report back where it's two like fucking Playboy bunny models, but in typical normal life fashion, where everything's a bit messy. He's a good guy. We've known each other for a while. He saw this pretty decently hot Mexican girl.
Yeah.
At the table, her friend was not on. She wasn't an oil painting. Let's put it that way. Playing the honourable wingman, I jumped in and basically drunk my own body weight in mezcal whilst kind of, distracting her. So yeah, I feel he owes me a few. Well, hopefully not beers, actually, maybe a taco or two.
Well, absolutely, yeah. And he was successful, was he? Did he, as far as you know?
He was. She actually, from what he said, she missed her flight, which was supposed to be today at 10 a.m. It's now 11:40 in the morning, and so he obviously got her shacked up with him for the next day, which has actually worked out great. I've got a couple of students arriving back today. One guy coming in from Miami, another guy actually went on a trip with a girl to Cancun yesterday, who's I've been working with. So I'm going to take them out at about 5 p.m. today. I guess to describe the place, I'll try and show you a bit of what it looks like.
Wow, this is amazing. Let me put this on to solo. Hold on.
Yeah, sure.
Solo layout. There we go.
So you've got this is what we'd say would be, this is Fifth Avenue. So I'm in Playa del Carmen. Basically, Fifth Avenue is the long kind of street, pedestrianised street that goes through. And it has lined up on each side bars. And it's a very cool place. I'd liken it to maybe Oxford Street in the sense that all the guys that are kind of running around and doing approaching here. And there seems to be a fair few because me and Les have obviously been, we lived here for 2 months, a couple of months ago, and kept banging on about come out to Playa del Carmen. In some way, get the curse because then now you've got guys running up and down calling people French. Every time
do you get recognised quite a lot out there? Do you get guys?
Yeah. There's been, again, I love it. I find it very humbling. Again, generally people will come up and say, I love your content. You've helped me, and it's inspired me to go and talk to some girls, and I've had these cool experiences. So I always find it really cool when a guy does that. But yeah, definitely, there's been a few guys that have come up and recognised me, and there's been some. Yeah, it's been cool. It's been fun. Me and Les spent 2 months out here before I then went back to Christmas to basically prove to my family I'm still alive. And
got to check in sometimes.
Say again.
Got to check in sometimes, haven't you?
Absolutely agree. Yeah, and my original plan was to actually get out to New Year's for Brazil.
Yes.
To Brazil, I was teaching a boot camp in Rio, but Boris changed the laws, so basically the flights got cancelled. And the reason I'm back in Playa is you have to do 2 weeks out of the UK to then get into Brazil. So my plan is basically spend 15 days in Mexico, fly from Mexico to Brazil in a few days' time, and basically just show that I've been out of the UK for 2 weeks.
Because there's no flight ban between Mexico and Brazil or anything like that, presumably.
No. But there's all sorts of nonsense with PCR tests, and you do need a PCR test to get into Brazil. It's got to be within 72 hours boarding a plane. It's very hard if you want to live a normal life these days.
Yes.
To kind of get on the flight.
I was thinking that the other day, actually, because I was thinking back to the golden days of guys doing videos, and yourself included, actually, but other people doing videos and saying, live this lifestyle, this kind of digital nomad lifestyle. You can be anywhere and blah, blah, blah. And of course, you can still kind of do that. And hopefully that will come back in time. But like at the moment, it's a bit sort of because every country's got their own regulations and stuff. So it's tricky, right? Yeah,
I think you've got to just be a bit like some guys are with. I work with a few kind of entrepreneurs, and they're very. They're not tax dodgers, but they're quite good at kind of putting their tax in. So they base it in Panama, and they've got all these kind of loopholes. I see this as the same kind of thing. That actually it's just a bit of challenge to life, and it's just
you still do it though.
Yeah, that whole anti-fragile thing, and we only live once, and that just adapt. It's not the strongest or most intelligent that survive. It's the most adaptable, and I think you can actually live a life at the moment where you can jump between the regulations and you're not doing it wrong. You've just got to figure out those loopholes. Like I spent last year, basically June to August in Sweden. I then went to Poland and Croatia for a bit, which at the time were open. I then went to Mexico, which I was allowed to do. So really, I was only locked down for about 2 months in London in total, and back to Mexico and then off to Brazil. So yeah, whilst it is more tricky to do it, if you just plan your life out and there's the desire is there to do it, you can do it.
Yes.
If I was in most guys' position, which is, I'm getting a lot of comments and emails saying, James, I'm fucking bored of the UK. I just know when to approach. The streets are dead. I'm like, well, fucking, get on a fucking plane. Obviously, I'm not suggesting break the law. Figure out what kind of loopholes or how you can do it, but it can be done. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Where there's a will, there's a way. And I think guys are sometimes, because the thing is, right, you were in the UK fairly recently before you went back over, or you went over to there. So you know what it's like here. And the atmosphere is probably even more charged than it was when you were here. And the thing is, when you're stuck in the center of it and you're consuming the media and everything, it really does feel like this is the whole world. It really does feel like everybody in the whole world is, that there's this crisis going on. Everybody's incredibly worried about it. Everybody's hiding on, behind the sofa effectively. And that's actually not the case at all, right?
You mean in the UK or Mexico?
Well, what I mean to say, I'm not undermining the idea that there isn't a crisis going on with the pandemic, but what I'm saying is that not everywhere in the world is in this same state of sort of inactivity and lockdown as a result of it, right?
No, I mean, I know a lot of people in Minsk at the moment. Obviously, I prefer hotter weather, so I wouldn't recommend it. But I've been seeing videos of that. It's very open. I know because I'm sitting in Playa del Carmen, I've been charging around and everything's open here. That you don't see anyone wearing masks. Gyms, bars, clubs all open. That being said, in the last few days, it's gone to something called orange zone, which means actually the gyms have shut, but bars and restaurants still open, just operating slightly less capacity. No one seems to talk about wearing masks. It's very easy, isn't it? It seems to become, this is the new normal now. And you know what? It's impacted people in a negative way in the UK, not just in terms of kind of scaremongering and all this stuff, but what we teach, I think, has become even more important because there's now a lot more social anxiety because people just haven't been interacting with people face to face, which we preach about as an effective way to communicate.
Yes.
I think that's the untold tragedy in some ways of this lockdown in the UK for almost a year, which is people are just becoming really socially anxious and socially uncalibrated, and they're fearing the loss, and I think they've realised as well that online dating is a fucking shit show. And obviously you can't go to clubs anymore. So in a weird sort of way, despite the fact it's actually harder than ever to talk to people in the UK, there's been a real kind of surge in popularity about understanding what we teach, which is day game, which is essentially speaking to people sober, right? Manning up and having a conversation sober.
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating kind of oxymoron. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But I mean, from the way the world looks, I think more and more people are going to kind of look to do that, not necessarily digital nomad route, but I've met a lot of corporate guys out here who are still technically working in the corporate world, but they're able to do that from a similar time zone on a laptop. So I think we're going to see a lot more movement in the next few years with guys actually being like, fuck this. I don't want to sit in my country. If it goes back to a lockdown, I'm going to actually get on a plane, work from somewhere and get on and socialize and approach. And for a lot of guys, actually, I think they're realizing day game is probably the most efficient way to kind of get dates and live that kind of dating life.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you've got that skill set, then you can travel, wherever you're going to go, and you're able to, you're able to meet people along the way, which is ideal, right? And you don't need Tinder, you don't need any of that nonsense. You're mentioning Minsk there. This is a little bit of a departure, but
sure.
as far as you're aware, Minsk is quite open, is it? That's kind of what I've been hearing, but I haven't had I haven't seen the videos.
Minsk is open. I'm speaking to I'm getting a lot of messages from guys because it's interesting. They're just kind of updating me with what's open, what's closed. Minsk is definitely open. I think the danger with Minsk is, and the danger with everything is we will get on there's a lot of fucking bored, horny men out there. And for example, me and Les will come to Playa or, someone will talk about Minsk and then everyone actually is going to somewhere like Playa or Minsk. And the problem is a bit like Oxford Street, I guess, 10 years ago, I wouldn't say it becomes overrun, because there's always, like, you know, if you're in a bar and you approach a hot girl's going to get approached 30 times. It doesn't stop her going home with the 31st guy that approaches her. But
Yeah.
there is a bit of a problem I've noticed, definitely on Fifth Street, with people approaching a lot, and you'll see them approach badly. And what it does is kind of, the girls will then just feel a bit like, oh, you know, oh, fuck this shit again.
Yeah.
There's a danger of burning places out that are a bit smaller. I know Minsk, having been there, it's a cool place, but there's very limited places to approach day game wise. They're pretty much got like one shopping center, and there's one kind of bar area.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that is the danger. But yeah, you know, if guys are looking for someone to go, Belarus definitely is open if they don't mind cold weather. I think Serbia as well is open, so that's always an option.
I've heard Ukraine as well. Actually, I think I've heard Kiev is sort of back to normal now, pretty much.
Yeah, okay. I mean, yeah, again, for me, I personally, you know, my life has been set up in the last few years where I'm deliberately trying to get out of the UK in winter months, because I fucking don't like the cold weather. So for me, Ukraine, Minsk,
Yeah,
they wouldn't be places purely because of the cold. But if you know, so if guys don't mind the cold, yeah, I'd say maybe Minsk, get over there for a bit.
Yeah, yeah. But it must have been awesome for you when you left, you know, cold, bloody, well, it's been snowing recently, but like cold, freezing England, miserable, and then got out of the plane in Mexico. It must have been just like a breath of fresh air. And like, there's the psychological effects of this as well, right? Because it must give you that massive boost in terms of your energy and whatever,
absolutely.
you know.
I mean, just being able to walk outside and it's hot weather, you know, you can go and grab a coffee, sit in the sun. If you see someone, you can go and just speak to them without a mask.
Yeah.
It's very cool. It's very cool.
Yeah.
I can't at all. Well, I guess in life we're always looking for that next thing, and you know, for very much first world problems. For me, having spent a bit of time in Playa del Carmen, I like it, but it's like not my, I guess my real cup of tea. I'm a big fan of Brazil, so I'm super excited personally to leave Playa del Carmen in a few days, go up to this mountainside town called Oaxaca.
Yes.
Somewhere a bit different, and then obviously head to Rio. But yeah, business to take care of here first, which is teach a few clients and yeah, do some approaching and have some fun here as well.
Yeah. Are you running boot camps at the moment, or is it more individual clients that you've got coming over?
So it's supposed to be, I actually just kind of set up a couple of, posted where I was going to be, and a couple of students got in touch and they came down. But I was supposed to have in Brazil originally 14 students. It was going to be a massive boot camp.
Yeah.
Carnival. And they've kind of all dropped like flies. They've shifted to other events, which is kind of understandable, because to get in and out of Brazil at the moment, it's a massive ball ache.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got a boot camp in Brazil for the carnival, which is the early part of February. Although that's the formal carnival has been moved to July. So I'm hoping kind of these informal blocos, these street parties people talk about, are still going to go ahead. Yeah, but we'll see. I mean, the vibe in Rio at the moment from video Sam's been sending me seems fucking electric. Like,
really,
again, they're just kind of ignoring, I guess, coronavirus in a lot of ways in typical Brazilian style. They just miss parties, so they're having a lot of fun.
Because he's over there at the moment, right? And he's having a pretty good time of it.
Yeah, he's in Rio, and the videos he's been sending me of just kind of nights out. It's just like normal Rio, basically. It seems to be there's certain spots in countries like Mexico and Brazil which seem to be super open. There are a big, number of cities in both countries where it's a really strict lockdown. Like, I was in Mexico City and everyone was wearing masks there. The weather was cold. Everything was shutting at 6 p.m. So there are, within these countries that appear to be open, there are more restrictions. But I think it's just, again, about picking and choosing the place that are open. And I know, in terms of Brazil, that Rio is super open at the moment. Rio is, the most open.
Yeah, fantastic. Somebody was asking a little bit back. When you showed us the street, it looked reasonably quiet at the moment, but I guess it's still quite early there, isn't it? It's about 11:30 in the morning. So it's, but generally speaking, how busy is it over there? Because I've heard pretty busy from what people are telling me.
Yeah, so again, like anything, you've got to kind of pick and choose, I guess, when you go out. I wouldn't suggest walking around all day approaching, because it's just a waste of fucking time. I've always been about efficiency with the approaching, and it's I'd recommend guys go out for an hour or 2 hours, a day, and get some leads. But the time to do that in Playa del Carmen would be usually from about 6 p.m. onwards. People start to go out. Daytime's here. A few people lying on the beach. Most people are just kind of chilling, doing other things. It's not super busy. But on this avenue that we looked at earlier, that at kind of 6 p.m. onwards, everyone starts walking up and down that, and so that's the time to be going out approaching. Yeah, it does get busy. There are people here, definitely.
Yeah.
It's not a ghost town by any means. I mean, it's hot, it's
Yeah.
open. It's
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
open. I'm here, though.
Nice. And what kind of nationalities are you looking at down there? Because it's pretty international, isn't it? From what I understand.
Yeah, there's a lot of we've met quite a few North Americans,
Mm,
Canadians, and US. There's a
yeah.
lot of Mexican tourists from other parts of Mexico. I'd say they're the main ones. We've met a few British people, a few French,
Yeah.
quite pretty cosmopolitan. But I'd say the majority were Mexicans from other parts of Mexico,
Yeah.
US, and Canada as well. And a lot of them seem to be actually living here. They've just fucked off, living in the US, and they kind of just moved their work over here. It's a similar time zone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
they're doing, they're able just kind of to relocate for months on
Yeah.
end. Most corporate jobs in the US seem to be, from what people are saying, seem to be pretty lenient with that, like letting them come here.
Really.
Oh yeah, the other one as well. Lots of Argentinians. Surprisingly, I went to Buenos Aires 4 or 5 years ago with a friend. We weren't really doing any approaching,
Mm.
and I didn't really see much of it other than did a bit of nightclub stuff. But fuck, there's a
Yeah.
lot of decent looking Argentinians here, like a lot of hot Argentinian women, and
Really.
they're all they're here. There's a lot here.
Nice. And before we came on air, you were talking about Tulum, because I've been quite interested in Tulum for the last year or so. Because from what I understand, it's become a real sort of like party magnet for this kind of international jet set crowd of people who've maybe got a bit of money, or at least they can work remotely. And I've heard it's a kind of a models and sort of, kind of high value dudes kind of a vibe. You've been there, haven't you? Have you been there on this trip, or is that part of the plan?
I haven't been there this trip, but I went. I did 2 trips. I went for my birthday, a 34th birthday, about a month ago for a long weekend.
Nice.
That was just a blowout, the highest order. I basically hedonistic chaos. I mean, I just did drunk and did too many drugs basically. So that wasn't an accurate representation of kind of what it was about. But went back again a few weeks later to see it properly. Stayed more sober that time, and it was a lot of fun. Absolutely agree. That I think that guy that just commented is Greg, who's actually flying into part of the comment.
Oh, nice.
Who's a student.
Nice.
But yeah, to answer your question, I first went to Tulum 6 or 7 years ago when it was literally just a fucking few hippies smoking a spliff.
Right. Yeah.
On a fucking, dancing around a campfire on the beach. And now it really is like a Las Vegas style, $1,000 a night hotels, very high end corporate people. Interestingly, I've been looking at, it was just interesting to compare. The quality there is very high. There's a lot of good looking women. I mean, with wealth attracts fucking beauty, right?
Yeah.
Coming out of the UK, I've been, checked up with seeing one girl for a while. I've been teaching students sporadically and doing a bit of stuff here and there, but I hadn't really been actively doing much day game.
Yeah.
For a few months, and fuck me, it was a bit of a baptism of fire going there. Like, they're very good looking women. They know it, they're powerful, they have a lot of money. They're high end corporate women. They're quite, I wouldn't say masculine, but they don't take any shit. It's a bit like if you go to Moscow or Belgrade for the first time as a newbie, you're going to get blown out like a cheap paper bag. And that was happening to me. I was stepping up to very good looking girls, and they were just like having none of it.
Right.
So it's a great place to go if you want to test yourself against good looking women who don't take. They're high value, good looking women, and you've got to fucking step your game up if you want to go there and do some damage. And I'd really recommend it. Not my cup of tea for anything longer than 3 or 4 days, because it's a bit of a fucking hardcore party atmosphere, and it's just it sucks you up and chews you out. It's I guess I'd make it akin to somewhere like Dubai in the Middle East, where it's very much people, the guys jacked up, fucking 8-packs, stunning women, big fake tits, but a lot of money flowing around. And it's great for 3 or 4 days. Absolutely is an experience, but I personally wouldn't be able to stay longer than that.
No,
that was my impression, but definitely somewhere to check out at some stage.
Yeah, it's interesting because I saw your video with Les the other day where you were talking about, and we can get onto this actually, but you were talking about your schedule going forward for the rest of the year and stuff. And you were mentioning Mykonos as well. And of course, Mykonos is another one of these places. Basically, I follow this guy on Instagram called Super Slutty Snake. I don't know if you're aware of the Instagram account, but it's quite a funny guy. It's called Super Slutty Snake. And his Instagram account is basically, it's all about the sort of rich kind of international party circuit and the people that go to that circuit. And he talks a lot, and he does memes where he'll take stereotypes of like posh English guy on holiday in Monaco or escaping to Barbados, evading quarantine to get to Barbados, or, you know, silly things like that, starter pack kind of memes. But he bangs on the whole time about Mykonos and also Tulum as well. And it seems like there's this sort of like international party circuit of people who've probably got a lot, you know, a bit of money, and then the girls who are tagging along for the ride kind of thing and just going to these different places. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool that you're going to Mykonos as well, because that's another one of those sort of places, isn't it, really?
Yeah, you've got to places like that. Look, there's, you know, I guess the reason I was attracted to day game was actually to kind of get away from that, which is this crazy, boozy, you know, fucking hedonistic shit. Because I've been doing that kind of vibe for years, just on lads on tour, kind of holidays and stuff. And I know you went through the phase of that, being a bit of a degenerate. And the idea, the attractive thing about day game for me was, okay, you don't have to do that. You don't have to be drinking. You can be, you know, almost just living a more low key life. That being said, you know, I can't do what I'm doing forever. And I think for me, it is about also experiencing some of these places. I mean, there's no getting around it. You go to somewhere like Mykonos, you go to somewhere like Tulum, you go to somewhere like a Dubai, and there is fucking, you know, they're all wall-to-wall stunners. Yeah. And they're, as you said, they're high-value women. They're used to being around fucking multimillionaires. They used to be around very high-value, powerful men. And it's a great way to test yourself. Yeah. Really, you know, and see what you've got, because your game's got to be on point and your value's got to be on point. And, you know, what I'd liken it to is, you know, a guy that's maybe watched our videos, has kind of been inspired, and he's got kind of the basic day game drills down, and he understands, like, to have a conversation and stuff. But, you know, and he goes off to Russia for the first time, where, he's able to do 5 to 10 minute party trick on the street. But nowhere to hide, and you know, the girl comes out on a date and she just sees straight through him. So it's the same with these places. You have to have your shit together. There's no way around it. You have to be dressing well. You have to have your fucking social skills on point. You have to be hanging around with a cool crowd, because often people here are in groups, and you know, they might you'll meet a girl who's like, yeah, sure, I'll come out with my 2 friends who are also fucking smoking, and you've got to have 2 basically decent mates as well, who understand what you're fucking up to. You've got to be staying in a nice place. You can't fake value there. Like you've got, I'm sure guys do. I'm sure there's a fucking hustle in itself to do that. But from my experience, there's nowhere to hide in a place like that. If you want to turn up and sleep and date the hot girls there, you've got to fucking have all your fucking life sorted out. There's nowhere to hide. So I mean, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but Mykonos for me, I'd like to go there. I'm down to go there this summer. That should be fun. I'm going to a couple of places similar to that. So I'm going to a place called Sochi, which is basically the Russian Ibiza. So again, that's going to be a fucking fascinating one, because obviously Russian women quite testy, some of the hottest in the world. Getting them all in a party place together. Yes, I'll have value being an English guy, but I'm still gonna fucking have to fucking, you know, be on point. There's no getting, there's nowhere to that. And Batumi Beach is another one which I'm gonna head to, which is kind of the Georgian equivalent of Ibiza, again within Georgia. So again, you get the novelty factor, the sexual market, economic play if you're the foreign guy, but you're still going to turn up and have game. And obviously, I don't speak Russian, so it's going to be a good way to filter through girls, I guess. You're trying to date, but at the same time, it's going to rule out a lot of opportunities because I don't speak Russian.
Yeah, absolutely. So I saw you're going to Moscow, aren't you? So are you planning like a trip? Are you going for a month or something and going to a few places within Russia? Yeah,
that's my plan. I really liked St. Petersburg when I went there a few years ago. Really cool place. A bit friendlier than Moscow. And you can play on that stereotype with people as well.
Yes, you absolutely can, can't you, over there?
You can say it in every conversation, just like I was just in Moscow. Much prefer it here. People are so much more friendly. And they play up to that stereotype, and they actually make a real effort to speak English, even though, you know, their English was pretty poor. They really like kind of practicing English. You can get away with a lack of Russian more so than in Moscow. That being said, again, Moscow, interesting place. Some of the world's hottest girls. It's a weird one because it's a big city, and you can go, you could go hours without seeing any hot women, and then suddenly you see like 4 absolute worldies, some 4 of the hottest girls you've ever seen coming out the subway. So it's a weird one there. It's almost like, I think if you're going to go there, hopefully have guys you can contact to understand the city and the layout and the best place to day game and the best times to day game, because otherwise you're going to be kind of walking around and just kind of winging it to a large degree, which again, our most limiting factor is time. And if you're only going there for a week, you don't want to be kind of guessing it for the first 4 or 5 days. You want to know exactly where to go and what to be doing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been to both. I'm quite a big fan of Russia. And actually, I've got a Russian visa at the moment. I sorted out a Russian visa. And and the difficulty is, of course, you can't, at the moment they banned us because, the UK got banned from a load of places because of the so-called, the new strain. So at the moment, I don't think you can get in, but they are talking about lifting it on the 1st of February. So we'll see what happens with that. But as soon as they lift it, then that's just, fantastic. Although at the moment, again, incredibly cold. So anywhere in this part of the world at the moment is sort of, you've got to just, if you like cold weather, it's good. But I mean, what you're doing, I think makes a lot more sense because you might as well also benefit from that sort of injection of vitamin D and the vitality that you get just from being in the sunshine.
Yeah, I think so. I've always said that Europe for me is best experience when it's May to spring to summertime. I think that's the best time to be in Europe, full stop, because the sun is just a factor with everyone. Everyone's a bit happier. Everyone has more time to stop and talk. You're going to get more tourists in cities. It's nice to be outside. I mean, there's just so many benefits, I guess, if you like cold approach and like day game to doing this when it's weather good. There is a certain kind of, I guess, beauty in, when I first was learning this way back when, in London, it was winter. And I remember the first few months I was kind of going out practicing this. I always kind of remember that as kind of this, the honeymoon phase of actually it was done in cold weather. And there is a certain beauty to that. You're there with your Americano on a Sunday day, wrapped up in a warm coat, the weather's a bit shit. Yeah. And you have this kind of amazing conversation with a couple of like really hot girls, and you're always going to remember those moments in life. But and that being said, I mean, I guess going to somewhere like Moscow plays into that kind of like the cool image and stereotype of you're wrapped up warm, the sun's snowing around you, and you see this stunner walking past, and you end up in this kind of warm bar drinking some hot tea or something. But generally speaking, I'd say it's a lot easier to approach and get on it when it's hot weather.
There's a certain masochistic element to it, isn't there? When you go in that really hot weather. I was actually a couple of years ago. I was actually in St. Petersburg with Tom Torero, who was over there filming something, and we were in St. Petersburg, and it was literally the snow. It was almost waist deep. Do you know what I mean? Really? We were staying opposite the Galleria, that mall, and he was going in there every day, basically just to do day game and so on. And it was like literally crossing the road. It was almost like, you were up to your knees in snow. And there was a certain, I look back on that trip with some fondness because it was kind of cool and there was a certain beauty to it and everything. But at the same time, Jesus, I mean, it's not exactly, you've got to be a bit of a glutton for punishment to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's true. I was having this conversation with a guy I'm with actually yesterday, and I think the addictive part to all the stuff that we do is actually, the fact that most of the time it doesn't fucking work out. Because if you were just, constantly, succeeding in this, which, you go through periods of that, but if it was all success, every girl you stopped, it was like, oh, hey, right, she comes back to yours. It wouldn't be as fun. And the addictive part of this, and I think why people stay doing this and it becomes part of their lifestyle is it's you almost get those near misses, don't you? And that's the addictive part. And exactly as you say, part of the beauty of this stuff is looking back. It's that kind of amor fati of the highs, the lows, everything, and almost putting yourself in stupid situations, putting your back against the wall and seeing what happens, and sometimes pulling a rabbit out of a hat, sometimes not. That's that's the fun of life, and that is what life's all about. It's not supposed to be straightforward. There's no real end goal anyway. It's about enjoying the journey, enjoying the ride. And I think, especially for me, go through periods of shifting kind of how I feel about all this stuff. But it's important sometimes to go back to basics, especially if you've had maybe 5-6 months. If guys are watching this and they've had 5-6 months out of the game, they're sitting in London, reading all the theory, overthinking things, feeling negative, not actually taking action. it's important to just go back to basics and just go out and almost fall in love with the process again, which for me was, I loved just going out and being able to speak to a hot girl sober and have that cool fucking vibe and conversation. And just, yeah, I think for a lot of guys, it's focused back on those basics, and including me as well. Like, sometimes you get caught up with, oh, fuck, how many dates have I been on? How many girls I slept with, in the last 2 months or whatever. But, often those aren't really parameters of success after a while. It's actually, why did I fall in love with this thing in the first place? And it was that vibe you get when you're gelling with someone, with a complete stranger, and you look back and you're like, fuck, that was amazing. That would never have happened. And those are the cool things you remember.
It is, yeah, that is the amazing part, isn't it, really? You create something out of nothing. You go up and talk to somebody, you would never have spoken to them otherwise, and you make a conversation happens, and you create something, and then maybe it goes further and you have a date, or you have sex or whatever, and it's something that it just wouldn't have occurred if you'd have just left things to chance. And that's the wonderful thing about it, isn't it? When it gels, when it all works, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I think we get on quite well, and we see things in the same light. And I think you're obviously a couple of years older than me, but I think it comes with age where your priority shifts. And don't get me wrong, when I first got into this, it was very much typical fucking story getting into this. Hurt by a girl, almost wanted kind of power and revenge and take it out on other women. Whether I kind of registered that subconsciously or consciously, and then you're actually like, okay, fuck, actually, no, why am I bringing anger into this? I want to just have lots of fun. And then it became an ego validation thing, right? How many girls can I sleep with? But as time has shifted, it's become, I think when you view it as actually go and meet some cool people, obviously you've got the chase element, which is the addictive part, the conversation, the day game stuff. It's almost that dance on both sides. You've got obviously sleeping with a girl, which is a natural kind of progression, but then actually, having these cool experiences, these mini kind of whirlwind romances with a girl you've met, where you've crafted out of nothing, as you say, maybe you've talked to her in a coffee shop or whatever. And that's the fun of it. It's when you've got all three of those elements there. And I do know a couple of guys, like personally, who just, they sleep with a lot of women. But I struggle to kind of see, because they never really want to see them again. So I struggle to understand what they're doing in some way, because for me, part of the thing is like actually hanging out with a fucking cool girl. There's nothing better than kind of, hung over a fucking Sunday, watching Netflix, glass of red wine with a girl you genuinely like. For me, that's the part. And it's it's a bit cheesy to talk about it, because the industry is all about, again, what's your lay count, how many girls you bang. But after a while, those are the wrong parameters, I believe, for success. And certainly I think I've gone through periods of this where understandably at the beginning that was the definition of success for me, but I kind of taking a step back and looking at what makes me happy. It's of course you've got to be approaching, you've got to be sleeping with girls, but at the same time you want to be meeting girls through this process that you genuinely click with. It's not enough that she's hot, right? There's got to be some shit there. Like, you've got to see life in the same way as you, and you've got to be able to like have a cool conversation, and it's got to feel good to be around them. And I think a lot of guys, they just don't they don't look at that part of it as well. It's all about, oh, I want to bang this girl. If it was all about just banging women and nothing else, the prostitution industry would solve all problems, and we wouldn't have people contacting us for day games. So I think guys need to kind of look at that as well in the process, and maybe it just comes naturally with age and when you've been doing it for a while.
Exactly, yeah. And the thing is, right, if you're doing this for any length of time, which you have and I have on and off, in and out of relationships, but I certainly have, and other people that we know have, then it's not just, it then becomes the fabric of your life. So it's not just, oh, how many, I approached 100 girls, how many did I go on dates with, how did I sleep with? And it's that mathematical formula the whole time, because you don't want to look back on a life and it's just like a score sheet. You also want to have had those amazing experiences, like, oh, do you remember that time, we both went skinny dipping and we swam around, around the harbour in Greece, and we did these cool things together, with these different girls and stuff. You want to look back on your life and have had those amazing experiences with people. And you're right, it's with those women that you actually gel with in some way that goes beyond just the physical. She's cool for whatever reason, and you, as you get older, you do start to look back and you think, oh, you remember those cool times, and it's not really the sex that you remember. Well, maybe I'm just weird, but it's in general, it's not the sex that you're remembering, it's the experiences that you had.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the sex part of it, don't get me wrong. Like, we all want to have those stories on our fucking war chest of, yeah, no, I
Yeah,
slept with a girl very fast, and it's great to have those experiences, and you do need those, I think, throughout this journey. Those crazy fucking very fast sexual experiences or just crazy location experiences. But yeah, I completely agree with you, Troy. I think, I think when the natural journey with this stuff is you end up eventually. A lot of guys think they want to live a player lifestyle. They fall in love with this idea of, I go to a new town and I sleep with 5 girls in 5 days. I go to another new town and do that. And there is something to be said for doing that in a period of your life. But after a while, actually, what most guys want, and start to realize what most guys want, is they want to go basically have total social freedom, so they don't feel socially awkward. They can talk to anyone, anytime, anywhere, which is an incredibly freeing aspect to your life. Having no kind of chains on your fucking social skills. Guys don't realize that, but that's really what they're learning with day game, just to be able to talk to anyone, any place, anytime, anywhere. And then actually, just meet one or two cool girls on location, have really cool experiences, go to cool restaurants, go to cool bars with them, go and do some cool tourist shit with them. And that's the shit you remember. It's that falling in love, in lust with someone, honeymoon period of the first, anything from the 2 days up to say 3 months. And the brilliant thing about the cold approach and day game, and if you're traveling, it gives you that ability to do that. And that's for me, that's been the coolest shit to have experienced through all this stuff over 7 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And funnily enough, I was talking to a mate of mine earlier who was over in Mexico recently. I told you before the show, and he is not into this stuff. He's not a game guy. He's not into this stuff. But he was saying, I was on the beach, and he said, I had a girlfriend for 3 days. And what he meant was that he just, he met this girl, they hung out for 3 days, they had an amazing time, and then they went their separate ways. And that's fantastic. It's those things, isn't it? And if you can create those things in your life, because you've got this skill set, because you can go and talk to people and initiate these things that otherwise just wouldn't have happened, that it just gives you the ability to have this incredibly rich experiential life, doesn't it? That other people, maybe they wouldn't be able to access.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely agree. And it's all an evolution, right? And it's all a personal journey as well. And people come into this for different reasons, but the underlying thread of what I've seen from working with guys over the last few years seems to be, actually, most guys think they want to be banging a new girl every night, but in reality, when they experience that, they realize, actually, no, I want to be dating one or two hot girls in a location for a period of time and having a really good time with them. And obviously, alongside that comes really good, the really good physical connection. But they realize, actually, there's something to be said. Look, there's something to be said. If you're 18, 19, 20, 21, even 22, 23, 24, 25, or maybe you're a very late starter, maybe you didn't use your virginity till late 20s, absolutely travel the world, stay in hostels, day game your fucking ass off. Don't feel bad about the fact you're doing, approaching 20 girls a day religiously just to have sex with people, because you need to validate and satiate that part of your personality. But I can say from my point of view, and I think you agree from your point of view, having been in this for a long time, what you'll find is, naturally, as you get older and as your kind of experience level changes, you're less inclined to do that. You approach less, a bit of apathy in there, and sometimes you have to kind of kick yourself up the ass and get back to that, which I found, I've struggled with at times. But generally speaking, it's about, exactly as the guy said, it's not the destination, it's the journey, and it's about having cool experiences with really cool people. And we were having a laugh about this the other day as well, me and a friend. But learning this stuff, just being a bit more socially calibrated, socially free, it gives you the ability as well to go to a place and just meet people. And it doesn't even need to be about necessarily the fucking, not from a day game dating perspective, just the ability to go out with cool people. Like you get to run a coffee shop and they give you some cool advice. You then change your trip based on that. That's something that you would never do if you weren't kind of socially free, from learning this stuff.
Yeah.
So there's many other side benefits to it as well that people don't really, register, and I guess the industry doesn't focus on.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, coming full circle a little bit, that keys in with what you were saying when we started about this whole new landscape that we're living in, because it seems like we are going to be in a position where people are probably going to be working remotely more. There's perhaps going to be more travel off the back of, well, as and when travel opens up more, there's going to be perhaps more travel, because why sit around in, Bedford or something if you could be in Mexico or wherever. Right. So in that sense, these skills are going to become more required rather than less, aren't they? Because you've got to be able to, it's not just, say you want to become a digital nomad. It's not just like, oh, right, so I can move to Thailand. Okay, how much is it going to cost? Where can I stay, et cetera, et cetera. There's those fundamental details. But also, you've got to meet new people. You've got to be able to meet new people and to create social bonds. And that's where this stuff really helps, or really comes into play.
Completely agree. And it's been fascinating for me, actually, in Florida Carmen. I had lots of different people come up to me and just be like, oh, Tusk, I saw your stuff on YouTube. I just wanted to say hi. I found your content fun to watch. But it's been fascinating for them how many people I've met who are on their own, and you can see that they're doing the day game stuff and it's great. They're meeting people, but they don't have they're still kind of on their own. So they're kind of fulfilling the dating side of it, which they're enjoying, but they're kind of missing like a group of cool guys to go out with. So It's been interesting connecting guys I've met with each other here. It's like then you see them in a bar drinking together and they're fucking happy. So massively underestimated with this kind of travel lifestyle thing is actually the ability to actually meet cool people outside of the dating context. Because if you're just meeting girls, that's great, but that's not going to solve the problem of like hanging around with some cool guys as well. I feel like for me, having grown up with 3 younger brothers, I'm very much, when I first started traveling on my own, I found it fucking lonely. I much prefer. I mean, I can get on with stuff on my own. It's not like I can't. I'm obviously productive, and you need to work on your own. But I much prefer to be in a location with you're not necessarily staying in the same apartment, near like a hotel nearby. We're in different spots, but in a location kind of like I've got here, where I know maybe 1 or 2 cool friends. And so we're able to meet up, do some approaching together, and then go for a beer together. That bit is completely underestimated. You've got guys to factor that in, but the day game stuff should help with that, because it should give you the ability to just, as weird as it sounds, if you see a couple of guys at a bar, just go up and have a chin wag with them, and maybe at the very least banter with them or find out something cool about where to go. And I was having a joke with my mate yesterday, which was actually, most guys probably that are into the day game stuff and that watch our stuff would find it harder to approach a couple of guys than they would a couple of women. It's kind of the same skill set, but it's a different skill set if it makes sense. But no, it's a great point. I think it's there's a number of factors guys should be considering, because I've met a lot of guys who kind of jetted off and done that digital nomad lifestyle, but actually they're still pretty lonely because of it, because they haven't figured out the other side, which is building that social circle and finding some cool people to hang around with.
And I think it's really important, particularly if you're pursuing this sort of lifestyle, which is, let's face it, it's relatively unusual. It's not to say it's not uncommon, but it's still, if you bear in mind, the default path is still kind of go to college, meet some girl, get engaged, get married. It's that's still kind of the default path as far as I can see. So when people like you go out and travel and you do this stuff, it is different. It is somewhat unusual. And of course, the other thing is we are doing something that would never have been possible before until this point in history, because we've got relatively affordable travel and we've got the internet and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, dudes 50, 100 years ago just weren't doing this kind of stuff unless they were, I don't know, like Lord Byron maybe did it a bit, or Casanova, do you know what I mean? But unless you were that sort of character, you just weren't doing this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the possibilities we have now are fucking limitless, aren't they? And I think it's about mapping out what you want from life and realizing that I bang on about this so much because it's such an important factor for me when I'm feeling a bit down or a bit negative or whatever. It's like, what the fuck am I dwelling on, like past failures or past instances for? You literally have a certain number of heartbeats and then it's game over. And that kind of, I forget the phrase in Latin, but remembering you're going to die is the best way to live. And fuck everything, just get on with it and do stuff you like. And I think guys need to, one of the big things I bang on about to people when I'm trying to basically, we're on a sales call and I'm like, they buy into the message I'm saying, and I'm telling them how I can help them. One of the things that I try and just really shove down their throat is you don't have 5 lifetimes of time to live this stuff. We live in an age now where it's never been so possible to get on a plane and be anywhere in within a period of time. I know currently obviously coronavirus and stuff, but outside of that, yeah, you're never, in terms of, historical development, it's never been easier to travel. And if you want to live, this quote unquote dream dating life of dating girls that you never thought would be possible to meet in, say, Grimsby, you can learn this stuff. You can fly to somewhere like Russia and you can date, absolute stunners. And it's just, I guess, mapping out what you want in life and figuring out what's important. But there's no excuse. I mean, I'm always basically kicking guys in the ass when they message me with whiny emails or, whiny like, oh, I'm, the victim shit. It's like, no, stop playing the victim. You've got 2 arms, 2 legs. You've got an education mostly. You can figure your life out with this stuff. The only reason you're not doing it is because you're fucking lazy or you haven't figured out what those real goals are. But yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's when you look at it as what it is, the potential for all this stuff, it's limitless with what you can do.
It's pretty mind-blowing, really, isn't it? And like I say, like people of our parents' generation and certainly beyond that, they just wouldn't have had the ability to do the kind of stuff that you're doing now. I mean, it's just incredible, really.
Absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah. Farhan's got a question here. I'm not quite sure. What do you mean still talking to the girl who rejected you after having a nice chat during day game? Where did she look interested when you see them again? I'm not quite sure what that question means, actually.
Maybe he's kind of like he's had a conversation, it hasn't kind of worked out, and then he's walked away and she's still looking back at him.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah. So what do you mean still talking to the girl who rejects you after having a nice chat when she looks interested? So he's seen her again and she still looks interested. So maybe she rejected him the first time and then he sees her again, but she maybe gives him a bit of an IOI. So what would you do in that situation? Do you go back in and just have another chat? I probably would, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it depends on how the conversation ended. There's, women.
She said, "I'm going to call the police." Then maybe not.
If she's looking at him again, in that kind of soft, warm way of, oh, hey again, obviously I'd say hello. But if she's kind of looked at you like shocked, like, oh God, I wouldn't be going over. But I guess the main thing would be tighten up what you're doing in the first place. I mean, why haven't you got her number? And if he was into you, you may be misinterpreting her looking at you again later. If you've seen her again, maybe she works in the gym or goes to the same gym as you. If she hasn't really given you contact details up front after you've had a conversation with her, I'd probably say she wasn't interested. That'd be my interpretation of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Although there are some times, I mean, rejections are sort of, I've certainly been rejected by girls in the past that I've later ended up getting with, because rejections it's not just one thing, is it? There are different reasons for rejections, and sometimes a rejection at a particular point in time, maybe because she has got a boyfriend or she, whatever it is. But in general, I think, because Farhan comments quite a lot on this stream, and glad to see you here today, mate. Thanks for tuning in. But I feel sometimes, like you need to have that abundance mindset as well. It shouldn't just be about, oh, what's this one particular girl? What does it mean that happened with that one particular girl that I met 2 weeks ago? It's kind of like, well, you need to be just spreading your net a bit wider, really, and just talking to more people. Now, obviously, if he's in the UK and it's at the moment, maybe that's not the easiest thing in the world. But in general, that's the way you want to be looking at this, right?
Completely agree. And I think one of the biggest things that people forget, and it's why it is important to track your numbers, and this idea of 25 to 30 approaches a week, I hammer on to guys about it so much. It's so easy for the brain to just get a bit negative. Yes. And it's not there's anything wrong with you. It's just you're not talking to enough women. Whole approach, you're going to get a lot of no's. It doesn't matter how good looking you are, how good your chat is. There's a myriad of factors, using that stoic mentality, that are out of your control, that you have zero control over. And I've always said to guys, if you're not approaching a minimum of 20 girls a week, you're not doing day game as far as I'm concerned. Right? I've been tracking my numbers here. I've done, I think, 19 approaches over like 4 or 5 days. So I haven't been hitting it particularly hard. And that's generated me 3 dates. So it's not bad. Bardacar, obviously, it's a touristy place. So I guess it's maybe a bit easier to date here. And I'm obviously, decent looking. I've got that gringo factor going on as well. But equally alongside that, I've had a lot of false positives. I've had a lot of good reactions from girls who then don't reply on the initial message. I've had lots of girls who maybe I over texted quickly and tried to get them out for a date, and they've just gone cold on me because I come across as too needy. But, even guys like myself and you and Les and other people who have been doing this for a long time, I think there's this illusion that we don't get rejected. I fucking get rejected a shit ton.
Yes.
But I don't care because I know what I'm always filtering through, and I know I'm gonna find a girl that I gel with, not just looks wise, but personality wise. I'm gonna have a cool experience with them. So in my mind, it doesn't matter because I know it's like, okay, let's get through all this fluff to get to where I want to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's about framing it like that, not getting caught too, as you said, not getting too caught up on one girl, looking at the bigger picture. But also, I would really advise guys just to write on their phone every day when they go out. Right, how many approaches have I done? Because 30 approaches from kind of, doing this stuff for a while, for me and for guys I feel that get this, 30 approaches should get you realistically a couple of dates. So you can do 30 approaches a week and get a couple of dates from that with hot women. So if your numbers are vastly off that in terms of the amount of approaches you're doing to the date ratio, probably you're doing something wrong. But if you're not hitting 30 approaches a week, and I know, at the moment it's hard in lockdown, but outside of lockdown, outside of coronavirus, if you're not doing 30 approaches a week, I say 30, minimum 20, really 25, 30. You're not playing the game. Guys are often saying, James, day game doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. And then we sit down and go through his numbers. I'm like, well, how many approaches you actually done in the last 2 months? He's like, 3. It's like, well, you're not going to get laid from that. I'm sorry, you're not things happen from that.
Yeah.
Super important to focus on, like, stay sane, like you focus on the important tangibles. We're not talking about making spreadsheets and doing all these kind of lists and Excel things. It gets weird when you start doing that, but having a vague idea of your numbers is important, especially if you're more of a beginner guy. Because if you're not doing 20 approaches a week, you're not playing the game as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. And, under normal circumstances in a big city, somewhere like London, there's no excuse at all not to do that because you've got enough traffic here. If you're in a large or large-ish sort of metropolitan city, you should have no problem at all hitting that. And if you're not, and you really want to get good at this stuff, then maybe you need to move, maybe you need to go somewhere where there's more traffic. I sometimes get guys saying to me, I live in a town and there's 30,000 people here. How do I get amazing day game results? And it's kind of like, well, in the end, you've got to go where the market is.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's something that's completely underestimated actually is guys not setting their lifestyles up to, not thinking ahead and thinking, right, 2-3 years down the line, how do I want my dating life to look? And if they live in a town of 30,000 people in fucking, if they're living in Hull, and obviously every girl most girls are not hot, be highly competed for. You're not going to be able to, you've got to just think about demographic and setting your lives up in such a way. Like if you like blonde hair, blue eye girls, think about maybe moving to Helsinki. If you like Brazilian women, think about moving to Rio. I think like
you're lagging a little bit. I think he was lagging a little bit. He's probably lost his. Let's just see if he's back. Okay, I think he's probably lost his connection a little bit. Adam is asking what a successful close rate is, which is a very good question, and we will ask him if he can get back. We will ask him what his view on that is. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, you're going to have to be doing. He's saying, out of 30 approaches, you should be getting a couple of dates. My view is that once you're on the date, then your close rate really should be about 50-50. So theoretically, out of 30, you should be getting one close. I would say, though, realistically, it's probably somewhat higher than that. I think 1 out of 40-50 is pretty good. An absolute beginner, to be honest, they're maybe going to have to do 100 approaches before they close. Okay, somebody who's pretty good, they're maybe 40-50, whatever. And obviously then it goes up beyond that as you get more and more expertise. Hey man, you're right. You managed to come back in.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure what happened there. It just all kind of went black. It's like I was dying.
Well, glad to see that you weren't and you're back with us, mate. We've been on nearly an hour now, actually, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. And I know that you're doing this on your phone, so perhaps his battery's, going to die in a second. I mean, if guys have got any questions for James, whack them in the chat because we probably won't go on for too much longer. So put any questions you got in the chat and we'll try and deal with them. But Adam in Florida is saying, what in your view is a successful close rate?
Yeah, again, it's an interesting concept, isn't it? I think probably, honestly, from 30 approaches, at least 2 dates. I think the stats Torero banded around were pretty accurate, actually, because I remember him talking about them years back, and I went through a couple of years of actually tracking mine, and I'm speaking to other guys who I believe are pretty good at this, and it was similar to what he said, which is 1 in 3 approaches is a number. I think out of 10 numbers, you go on maybe 2 dates, and you sleep with maybe 1 girl out of that. So between 20 to 30 approaches results a new girl in your bed. Obviously, if you're in a place like Thailand where there's a lot of if you're a good-looking white dude, you can be sleeping with 2-3 girls a day. Whereas if you go somewhere with very high value women, that ratio is going to be lower. But I think for most guys, the stat they should be tracking is how many dates, how many approaches does it take to generate a date? Because that's the first step. If you can't get girls on dates, then you're going to be lacking. So I think that's the first one. But track the most important ratio. I think is get up to doing 20-30 a week, and then from that should generate you a few days, maybe 2 or 3 dates. Those are good stats in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true in the sense that it's not a straightforward question to answer because your value is so different in different situations and the requirements of the girls are different in different situations as well, right? So it's not as easy to say, oh, here's the number, and if you're not hitting that, you're rubbish, or if you're hitting that, you're amazing. Because you're right. If you're in the Philippines, then it's probably going to be off the scale. Equally, I know guys who talk about just approaching off indicators of interest. So they're only going to approach if she gives him a smile, gives him a look, whatever. And they report very high close rates. But then on the other hand, it's sort of like, well, if you're only approaching girls who've already expressed an interest in you, then it naturally is going to be higher. But that doesn't really compute because you should be creating more opportunities for yourself, not just limiting the birds.
I get a lot of, it's kind of a burden and a curse in some ways. First world problems, obviously, but I get a lot of, people saying, it must be super easy for you because you're good looking. And I've gone through phase of only approaching off girls that give me IOIs. And whilst there are a lot of girls that would give me IOIs, it's not always the girls that I actually want. Those real kind of absolute stunners, they don't really, those quote unquote 10s, I guess, that, they might check me out from time to time, but it's not a consistent way. And I think again, what we're building here is absolutely be socially switched on. If look good, like dress well, have a good haircut, have your grooming on point, and if a girl checks you out, absolutely go in. Like it's criminal if a girl checks you out and you like her not to say hello. But you should also be thinking, right, assume that most girls aren't going to check you out, and again, cold approach is this idea of kind of free, allowing yourself to be socially free. Jump in with every girl you find attractive, whether you like her or not. But I agree. When people talk about close rate, it's so subjective, depending on the guy's situation and where he's approaching and how he's approaching and that kind of all these things. But I guess if you're just doing traditional cold approach in a normal city and you're a normal dude, okay dressed, okay looking, you should be looking to get on 2 or 3 dates from 30 approaches with decent looking girls. We're not talking about like charging around slaying buffaloes. It's like, actually attractive women.
Yeah, indeed. Somebody was asking earlier about what language you're approaching in over there. Are you doing Spanish or is it all English, or would Spanish help at all in this situation, or what's the vibe?
Yeah, it definitely does. It's a bit like if you're in Russia and you speak Russian, it's obviously going to help. And there's going to be a number of girls that it rules out if you don't speak Spanish. I can speak okay Spanish. I can understand pretty decent. I can understand pretty much what people say. I struggle more with speaking, but I can speak okay Spanish. So what typically I'll do is I'll run up and say, I wanted to say hello. If she's like, no hablo español, no hablo inglés, I'll switch to basic Spanish.
Yeah.
And it's great Portuguese and great Spanish. And that allows you to have a larger pool of people to date, because there are going to be a lot of girls in, say, Brazil or Mexico that don't speak proper English. That being said, if you're only here for a short amount of time, you want to really filter through and maximize your leads. Not speaking the language is actually quite good, because you don't waste any time with girls that don't want to meet a foreigner. So if you're just speaking English, the girls that can't speak English get lost straight away. Because you can't speak Spanish. So it's actually it operates as quite a good filter system as well, the other way around.
Yeah, I'd agree. That's a good point. And it should never be an excuse anyway. Mo,
all these guys that talk about, oh, I can't speak the language, I can't approach, it's absolute bollocks. Most, but we're lucky enough that we speak English, and it is the international language, right? So most women, especially, most women can understand it to a degree. And again, I think a bit like, a girl speaking on a phone or a girl wearing a face mask. It's another reason guys are like, oh, I can't approach. I'm in a foreign country, I don't speak the language. It's just another kind of barrier to entry they're giving themselves to not kind of actually address this stuff and get on with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Mo's asking, I'm in Denver now, but moving to Miami this summer. Should I go monk mode and work on getting in shape and ready for the beach? So this is the age-old question. Should I take time out and work on myself instead of approaching, I guess, instead of doing game? I think that's what he means anyway.
Yeah, it's the age-old question, isn't it? I think you can be a bit of a juggler and do several things at once. I really don't see why you can't speak to 1 or 2 girls a day whilst you're working, you're getting in shape, you're doing your diet, you're working on your business. Because let's be honest, you go out for a coffee, you go to the gym, you're gonna see throughout your day, if the average dude walks out of his house and he actually consciously is aware of how many girls he finds attractive, he's gonna see a number of those. There's gonna be probably at least 5, I'd say, at least 10. All he needs to do is talk to a couple of those every day, and he's gonna have options. I don't think that's a massive kind of time sink to do that. So no, I personally think this is an ongoing process. The sooner you can start talking to people and being more sociable, the better. I don't think this idea of monk mode and I'm fix all this shit and then I start doing day game is the right mentality. I think it's about social skills, and the more you talk to people, the more you banter with people, the more you interact with people, the better you are at this stuff, full stop. It's really about becoming more extroverted rather than anything else. So no, I'd say don't do that. If you are able to go out, even if it's a bit of a lockdown where you are, I would practice your social skills with people. It's going to make you better socially.
Yeah, 100%. And like you say, it's not a massive time sink. You can do that just in between when you're working on the other stuff. So, it shouldn't be a problem. And Averiso has sent a few messages saying he's in Playa del Carmen now, outside your apartment. Not really. Where can I meet you to go out for street games? So I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that, but you've got some
if he wants to drop me an email, info@jamestusk.com. Drop me an email, include your WhatsApp number, and I'll send you a message on WhatsApp, and definitely we can have a chat about things. I've got a couple of students here already, but we can maybe have a chat about doing something as well.
Great stuff. All right, listen, well, mate, thanks ever so much. It's awesome to catch up with you, and particularly on location, as it were. So thanks ever so much for coming on, as always. We haven't talked actually so much about your forthcoming, the tour throughout the rest of the year. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that or just anything else about where guys can find you, or et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, I've got a schedule laid out. I'm going to be pretty much in Mexico for the next few days, and then Brazil for at least a month. And then my plan really is not to come back to Europe until June. So from June onwards, I'll be charging around a lot of Turkey, Russia, Ukraine, having a lot of fun there. But I think the usual thing, if guys want to get in touch, just send me an email, info@jamestusk.com, and include your WhatsApp number, and we can have a chat. And if you want help with this, I can help you out. And obviously, a lot of guys, what they do is they'll pick a place on my schedule where they find the women very attractive, depending on their preferences, and then they'll come and join me there, and we'll charge around and do some damage and have some fun. So that's really the way of doing it, to sum it up.
Nice. And I assume you're not planning to come back into the UK for quite a long time at the moment.
Well, I mean, I physically can't. If they have this, Brazil's on the hit list, right? So if I flew from Brazil to the UK, I'm not staying in a hotel 15 days at the cost of paying $2,000 for that.
No. But you'd probably be all right if you flew via Europe or something like that. But I mean, I just think at the moment, if if you've got the opportunity not to be in the UK, it's probably not a bad thing, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know how it works with if I've been in Brazil, do I then jump somewhere else? If I've got a negative PCR test, am I okay to fly back? Yeah, how does it work with flying to a?
I guess they'll. I don't know that they've laid out the sort of letter of the law yet. I guess they'll lay out the details. I would have thought it would be more like that kind of thing of if you've been 15 days somewhere that's deemed to be a safe country, then perhaps you not have to do the quarantine then. But we'll have to see when they lay out the details. But it's all crazy at the moment for sure.
Yeah, what's your plan, Troy? Are you planning on getting on a plane anytime soon, or?
I'm looking. I am looking at it very seriously, man. I'm looking at it very seriously because there's only so much that sitting around that you can do. Although I've been getting a lot of work done. Catching up with mates over here and all that kind of stuff. So it's not terrible, but at the end of the day, you only get one life, don't you? Which is what you've been saying the whole time. So
Yeah, and especially for if guys are watching this and they are a bit older and they've been twiddling their thumbs on this sort of stuff for most of their life. I mean, if you're over the age of 30 and you've kind of been watching YouTube videos on day game, but you haven't been taking action, you're not really living in reality. I think you've got to look to start. And if you can't do that on your own because you've watched YouTube videos for a few months or a few years, go to it. You just fucking swallow the ego, swallow the pride, and go to a coach who can help you. I'm very clear that I had coaching from the daygame.com guys, John Matrix, Tom Torero. I tried to do this shit myself and I couldn't do it. I went out a few weekends in a row, stood there like a fucking statue, got coaching, and I needed that. There was no way I was going to do this by myself. So I've got massive respect to guys who actually kind of are getting out there and starting the process by themselves. But if you want to get to a high level with this and you want to save your most valuable asset, which is time, fucking go to yourself or me and get on with it, because you only live one life and you're not getting it back.
Exactly. Winston says, is masked day gaming pointless? No, I don't think it is. I think that's another kind of weasel. That's another excuse, isn't it?
I agree. Yeah. I mean, there's loads of fish for me in Guadalajara recently in Mexico, approaching girls in Zara, which is quite high pressure anyway, because it's in a store and we're both wearing masks and the girl doesn't give a shit. Again, I completely agree with you, Troy. I think it's another weasel. I think it's another excuse for guys not to approach.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Well, listen, mate, with that, thank you ever so much for taking the time out with a hangover and in the sunshine when you could probably be on the beach to come and speak to me in rainy old England. As far as I'm concerned, guys, just hit subscribe to the channel, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, give us a comment, all of that good stuff. Help me to build up the audience, etc., etc. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in on the live stream. Thank you to everybody who watches this on the replay. It's very much appreciated. And we will see you again very soon. Bye-bye.